Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us here again. Big shout out to Fearless Financial Advisors for sponsoring the podcast. I'm so grateful to the support we get, and we recently combined the Tandem Financial team with the Fearless Financial team, and we've got a great big family out there of financial advisors and administrative staff that are just wonderful. So check out their website, check out my website. I think that we're going to do some exciting things together with Tandem. So today we're talking to Rhonda Overby, and Rhonda has a great big story. I'm not sure you could keep this woman down. She is just so full of life and energy. The thing that struck me the most in my conversation with Rhonda was her unshakable determination. Like, she didn't just talk about working hard, she actually lived it. She was up at 4 a.m. as a college intern with no car and reporting at the White House. And she's lived in this big world. She's lived this huge, big, beautiful life. But she worked so hard to get there. And she did it because she knew where she wanted to go. As she told me, she said, don't let someone else tell you what you cannot do. If you're willing to do what it takes to do it, you can make things happen. And in her life, she kind of did make things happen. In fact, she made just about anything happen. She set a goal. She worked towards it with all her might. And it's more than just a career pivot. When you're listening to Rhonda's story, you're kind of getting a masterclass in like grit and self-belief and determination and trusting in your own vision. And she makes you feel a little bit like you could do it too. If you just believed in yourself enough, this big, beautiful adventure that she's on could be yours if that's what you wanted. Or if you don't want that particular adventure, decide kind of what you do want, and you could make that happen too. It just takes a lot of determination and hard work. I am so excited for you to get to hear Rhonda's story. Let's get started. Good morning, Fearless Females. So we are here today with Rhonda Overby. She is the chairman and CEO of Camera Ready, and I'm so excited for this interview today, Rhonda. I've been thinking about our pre-interview conversation, and I just am so excited to hear about your journey. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for doing what you do, inviting fearless females to share their stories in hopes of helping someone else achieve their dreams. It is why I am on the planet. So thank you for having me.
So I love that we've got like aligned goals and mission statements. I think this is going to be really great. Rhonda, tell me first, it's my very favorite question because I'm a reader. What is your favorite book?
So Lorie, superlatives are very difficult for me because I'm like, favorite for what? But if I had to pick only one, I would say The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. Are you familiar with it?
Mm-mm.
It is 4 books in one, and it is not a big book. It is timeless. And that's not just my opinion, to the extent that the first book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, and in that Means to Win, was written in 1925.
Oh my gosh.
So 100 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It remains a bestseller on Amazon because its advice is still relevant. It goes into love, money, your word is your wand. And I think that is particularly important in this alleged post-truth era, which is just frightening on so many levels. So if I have to only have one, it would be The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn.
I know. I laugh at that question all the time, Rhonda, because like if you asked me to choose one, it would be like the favorite book of the week. Like I could not narrow that down to one. So I appreciate you doing that for me. So first, tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get started? Where are you at today? Kind of what do you do? Just tell me a little bit about how you got where you're at.
How far back do you want to go?
Yeah, I love those that like knew when they were young what they wanted to do. Were you one of those?
I was not. I thought I wanted to be an attorney.
Okay.
And my high school guidance counselor asked me why. And I said, I think it would be enjoyable. I think I would be good at it. And I need to make a lot of money, and they make a lot of money. And I needed to because I grew up impoverished. And she said, attorneys don't make a lot of money. And I said, yes, they do. And she said, oh, well, if you become a partner at a major firm, you do. She said, but they don't start out making much money. In fact, they start out making what teachers make. And I'm from Virginia, where teachers don't have high salaries. So, and she's like, furthermore, you have to go to college post undergraduate and you have to pass the bar. So she said, you should be an engineer because you have such great science and math scores, and they need female engineers now, and they start out making a lot of money. So she excitedly arranged for me to spend the day at an engineering firm, and it happened to be an engineering architecture firm. And so the partner takes me around, and he excitedly goes into the kitchen with the plumbing and turns on the faucet and excitedly says, don't you just wonder how all the pipes are connected so that we get water, and we do the same with the light switches, etc. And I'm thinking, you know what, as long as I turn it on and the water flows, I'm good. Same with the light switch. On the architecture side, however, I found that creativity fascinating. And I thought, wow, to be able to dream a building, a home, and at whatever it is, and bring that to life, that would be fantastic. But I thought, I don't have enough natural drawing ability. And the architect is like, oh, when I was coming up, we needed to be able to draw. Everything is computer aided now. You don't need to be able to draw at all. And I thought, but wouldn't it be better if I could? And he's like, yeah. So me always thinking you should be optimal. I thought, okay, not that. But I had always done the announcements. And one morning, the assistant principal, after I'd given the announcements, came in. She said, your voice carries so well over the PA system. Have you ever thought about doing that for a living? And for a fraction of a second, I'm like, the announcements. And then I thought, news. Yes. So I thought, that's actually what I want to do. And I went to my counselor, and she said, well, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is the best school on the East Coast for that. But I was a presidential scholar, and I skipped the 11th grade, although skipping was illegal the entire time I was in school. That's a whole other story. That was only because I realized as a sophomore, when we had this meeting, that every class would be an AP class, because I was always in gifted and talented, and I would have to take each test. So each class would be a freshman college course, and I would have to pay the money to take each test so that I wouldn't have to repeat that as a freshman. And I thought that was just insane. Why not just be a freshman? So after they went to the school board and everything behind closed doors, because I was a minor and I had to lobby, et cetera, but it happened. But I ended up applying late to UNC Chapel Hill because all of a sudden I'm a senior and I'm away in Washington as a presidential scholar. So I forfeited the National Merit Award, forfeited a full ride to the College of William and Mary, and get to UNC where they say, oh, fewer than 13% of the people who graduate with degrees in the field ever get jobs in the industry, much fewer on television. So if that's why you're here, you need to come up with something else. And I thought, oh, there is no plan B. I declared independent status to get here, and I don't know what that number is, if it's 0.002%, but whenever I turn the news on, I hear somebody saying, good evening, thank you for joining us, topping the news at this hour. I'm like, I'm going to be in that number. So I started working in radio as a teenager, a young teenager, my freshman year, first semester on campus, and then applied for an internship, which happened to be at WTVD in Durham, which is an ABC owned and operated station. And it was more than a half an hour from campus. I did not have a car. When I think back now, and when I interviewed, they asked if I wanted to see the stars or if I wanted to get real experience. And I said real experience, because why else are you interning?
Right.
And so she suggested that if I showed up at 4 a.m. and at 8, I think, on the weekends, no other intern wanted that. And I would actually report because they didn't have the staff. So that's what I did. When I look back, Lorie, how I got there every time is fascinating to me because we didn't have public transportation at that hour between the two
Yeah.
destinations. But where there is determination, you can make things happen. So I always say, don't let someone else tell you what you cannot do if you're willing to do what it takes to do it. And one thing led to another until I decided I didn't want to do news anymore. It was fantastic training. I was on the fast track. I would move to a different market every year
Uh-huh.
and realize, wow, okay, now I'm really well paid. And would go from the White House to the ghetto, sometimes in the same day, from boardrooms to operating rooms to all kinds of environments, have solved murders before the police, literally in more than one state. So just incredible training. But I felt like I could not create generational wealth or have the possibility of so doing if I didn't become an entrepreneur. So I decided to leave to become an entrepreneur. And that's how Camera Ready was started. Although I didn't plan to start a strategic communications company, I'd planned to go to Wall Street. But because the station wanted me to stay and work out my contract, I stayed. I didn't want to burn any bridges until they found replacements. And my shows were number one in the ratings. So people learned I was leaving. And Catholic Charities USA asked me if I could do this broadcast that they did every year. And I said, okay. But me having grown up in live network television, instead of just doing what they asked me to do, I made suggestions on how we could make it better. And they were like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. We've been doing this for more than however many years. No one has ever. So I ended up training their communications directors all over the contiguous United States and beyond. And there was enough organic growth that I decided there should be some corporate structure around whatever this was. And that's how Camera Ready was born. A really long answer, but
No, it's fascinating. So how long did you work in network news with delivering the news?
from, gosh, long ago enough to mind the question. So from undergraduate until the late 90s.
Uh-huh. So 10 years, 15, 20?
You know what? I'm always forward looking. I haven't quantified it in that.
You haven't looked at that,
But
huh?
let's say 10 years.
10 years. That's great. That's a lot of experience to pack into 10 years, too. I loved your idea of like grit and determination. And I think that one thing that you didn't specifically mention, but I saw in that was the consistency. You were determined, you were gritty, you got up, you walked there, but you did it every single day. Like 4:30 in the morning, like sure, you can do that one time, but every single day for years putting in the work is huge. I love that determination. What, Rhonda, as you look back across your journey and your experience, what would you say is the best investment you've made in yourself? Is there something you can say that, oh my gosh, without that, I just wouldn't be where I'm at today?
Perpetual learning. Stasis is not sustainable for any living thing. An animal, a plant, a human, change is inevitable. We're either progressing or regressing. Too many just don't recognize that they're regressing. And so as change is inevitable, whatever it is, learning. So I continue to study. I was at Tuck Business School, which is at Dartmouth, last summer, executive education. I've gone to Oxford in England for creative writing, Hopkins postgraduate for accounting when I decided, oh, wow, you're running this business. So let's get some. So just perpetual. Right now, I'm fascinated with AI because it is changing the communications industry. So perpetual learning.
Yeah, and quickly, it's changing it quickly too. So what you mentioned that kind of like you're growing or you're regressing, but where do you get, okay, I worry about this myself because I get to that place where I'm like, I know how to do things, I'm feeling comfortable. Like, how do I know when it's time to progress and when it's okay to kind of stay where I'm at and learn? Like, was there a tipping point where you're like, oh, I'm getting too comfortable here?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And it ties back to news. Because when I first thought, oh, okay, it's now just time to accept the offer at a different level. And when I thought about it, I thought, no, it's not that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I felt like I had gotten everything that I could in terms of training and growth, and that there was not much more to learn. So I think that when you get to the point where you feel like you have mastered the topic, it's time to sail if you haven't had the opportunity to implement it, because sometimes there's the learning, then there's the implementation. And with the implementation can come additional learning. So I think it depends, but you kind of know.
hmm For me, it kind of feels like it's just I'm a little bored. Like I when I get a little bored in the subject, I'm like, "Oh, I'm in a place where I kind of know what there is to do here and I need to challenge myself."
I love that. Absolutely.
Rhonda, what is the worst advice someone gave you? Have you ever gotten some really bad advice and just did you take it? Did you not?
I did. And it goes back to having turned down all those scholarships, claiming independent status as a teenager to fund my undergraduate degree. And I was eligible for grants, of course, and that was not enough to meet the out of state tuition, room and board, etc. So there were student loans. So you would go to the financial aid office to apply, and I'm trying to determine what amount I should apply for. And the aid officer actually influenced me to apply for the maximum amount each semester. And I'm thinking like, oh, I don't need that much. Like I could make it. And she's like, "Ah, you only have to pay back $50 a month. And with your degree from here, who's not going to be able to pay that?" So I actually thought she meant collectively $50 a month, not $50 per month per loan per semester. And sometimes the maximum amount required more than one loan from more than one lender. And because I was on that network news fast track, moving to a different state every year, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, one lender could not find me. So I was delinquent, but I didn't realize I was delinquent because I was never getting any bills. Every bill I got was paid in full. All of a sudden, you're moving to a different state. Of course, you need to have utilities, movers, whatever is new for that situation, wardrobe, everything. And in one market, I applied for a gas card or something, I don't know, a local store, department store credit card, and I was denied. And I'm like, my credit, it got to the point, and I didn't know why. I could not get a gas card when I most needed it because of this student loan. So that was the worst advice. In hindsight, with that experience, it has taught me to be extremely responsible with
Mhm.
resources. So now I don't believe in paying interest and fees. And passive income is a beautiful thing. And so the pain of, and that was exacerbated because I think it would not have been so bad with student loans. I think there's some grace given to that by lenders. But I also totaled a car that was 11 months old.
Mm.
So a brand new car depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot because now it's a used car, and it depreciates most during that first year. And so totaled this car, needed to buy another one as I'm working all hours alone in a state without family. And the car dealer says, well, we've run your credit report and you already have a car, and based on your salary, you can't afford to pay for two. And I'm like, you're right. But which one do you think I'm going to pay for? The one that's totaled, that's rolled over in a ditch, or the one that I'm depending on to get to 3 jobs every day? So that was, I think, the needle with the credit. But once I resolved that, I resolved to never have that challenge again, and went to the opposite extreme to actually learn trading equity derivatives, which is how I provided the initial financing for Camera Ready. And when I learned how to trade derivatives, I'm like, wait a minute, I can sell something today that I never bought to begin with and get the money in my account this afternoon, and this is legal. I'm like, oh, stop playing.
Well, you are speaking my love language there with the idea of making sure that you're financially stable, making sure that you can, living on less than what you make, giving yourself a lot more options for taking advantage of those opportunities. And I am so with you, Rhonda. I feel like they talk so pretty when you were in college and they're like, well, just take the student. It's a good debt. You're fine. Everything's going to be fine. And you find that they maybe are not giving you advice in your best interest there. And I love that you learned that investing piece, how to invest strategically and how to the sort of risks that are appropriate to take to make your money grow so that you can take advantage of those opportunities. I say that my one true love is more women in finance, and whether that's women learning how to use finance to make their goals come true or their dreams happen, or whether it's, women in the financial realm. I just love that you did that. Kudos.
Thank you. We live in a capitalistic society. It takes a certain amount to live.
Yeah. And it's important that you understand how things work so that you can be the one that, becomes financially stable and even grows that so that you can take advantage of the new business, that shows a lot of gumption. What about regrets? Is there something that maybe not regret, but something that you kind of look back on and say, I would do that differently if I could do it again? If I had all the knowledge that I have now and I went back, I would do that differently.
So one thing that comes to mind with that, I told you I was leaving television news and I had a contract and they wanted me to stay. I don't know if you're familiar with the William Morris Agency, one of the largest talent agencies, long history. They asked me to New York. They wanted to propose something to me. So I take the meeting. I'm in Manhattan and they want me to be the next Oprah Winfrey. So they're offering me this package, but I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh no, you don't understand, because I was an anchor, talk show host as well as reporter, and I didn't want to do that. I was interested, however, on what they call the legit side, where they handled actors, because in fulfilling requirements along the way, I would always dabble in that. And so they said, oh, that's a whole different department. We're not agents there, but we can go over to the legit side and see if one of the agents is willing to meet with you. So it took a while because they were at the height of their popularity. And by the time they came back, they were like, wow, we can't believe it. They've looked at your reel, they know, and we got you a meeting. Well, by this time, I had made a commitment for lunch with a friend in New York. And I thought, ooh, if I take this meeting, I'm not going to make it to the lunch. And I made a commitment. So that would be rude. So I turned down the meeting, go to the restaurant where the person never makes it before the restaurant closes for lunch. So I know not what might have happened had I taken that meeting. But acting always felt like getting paid to play. No disrespect for those who do the massive amount of work to do that exceptionally well.
Right.
But it just always felt like being paid to play because I enjoy that so much.
Yeah.
So that's probably the first thing that comes to mind. I believe your word is your bond, and you make a commitment, you honor it. But sometimes I guess you need to not take an opportunity for granted. And at that time, with such access, I didn't know that you couldn't just, say, I'll be back next month to do this. No. So,
That's a hard learning experience too, isn't it? To realize that sometimes these opportunities really only come up once in a lifetime sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. So knowing when to say when.
Yeah. I think that leads really well to the idea too of like boundaries. Your word is your bond and committing, but knowing when to change that commitment or reschedule something so that you can take advantage of a different opportunity. I think boundaries come into play there too, where you're like setting your boundaries and knowing what you can reasonably do and be expected to do and making them fluid enough to work for you, but also strict enough that you don't burn out or something like that. It just struck me as kind of analogous.
That is very wisely stated and true.
Sometimes I have a hard time with my boundaries, so I think that advice probably would work really well for me in my life. If you could high five your past self for one financial decision, what would it be?
Becoming debt free, learning to invest, recognizing it's not what you earn, it's what you do with it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just going to let that sink in just a little bit because that is so true. Learning to invest, understanding that it's not what you make, but it's what you do with it. And hard lesson to learn really early on, like we talked about, but so vital. And who's to say that lesson didn't come around at probably the perfect time for you because you have your entire working career to have the advantage.
Exactly. A young person said to me once, "Oh, this person has a lot of money." And I said, "Oh, how do you know that?" And this person talked about the car driven, the home, the clothes, etc. I said, "Now, what you have just explained to me is this person spends a lot of money, which may mean they don't have a lot of money." And so a lot of people get confused by that.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that we realize that just spending a lot doesn't mean that you are saving and being responsible. And kind of, there is such a thing as good debt, taking out money to earn your college education. In a lot of ways, it bounced you further and further than you could be. It's just, we have to be really careful about how much and what's right for us and what we can pay back and what gives us a little bit of wiggle room so that we're not worried about making. I just don't want you to miss an opportunity because you didn't plan properly, right?
Oh, that is so well stated. I heard a talk show host say the other evening, a study just was released showing that most Americans, I can't remember the exact quantification, nor if it was explicitly quantified, but it was definitely the majority, were one disaster away from homelessness or being completely upside down. And the number given was like $400. And this person, who's been successful for quite some time, could not fathom that $400 could be the cause of someone being evicted. But those who live in poverty or the working poor definitely get that. So it's interesting. The divide keeps widening. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And it is valuable and difficult to see both sides of that equation, to have the opportunity to be resource deficient, maybe, to live in poverty and valuable to understand what sort of decisions you need to make in order to live a different life, but also heartbreaking to live there.
That's part of the American promise. It's not what you look at, it's what you see.
What scared you the most when you started out on this journey, or did anything scare you? You seem absolutely like on top of things to me. I don't think anything scares you. So tell me if it did.
Failure.
Okay.
Failure. The fear of failure. And yeah, it still scares me. Not that I've not been successful, but I don't feel like I have accomplished enough. And so, yeah, that scares me still. It would be shameful to not have helped more people.
Yeah, to kind of think that I was given all these opportunities and blessings and I want to give back. Maybe I didn't do enough, but you're doing so much.
My daughter says I'm insane. Like, you know how successful you are and how many people you've helped. But it does not feel like I have had to use all of my skills in a manner that makes me say enough. Does that make sense?
Mhm. It does. How do you combat that though? That sense of always, because I have a little bit of that where I set a goal, I reach the goal, and then I immediately set another one because I'm always constantly trying to do better, be more, be better. Like how that it leads to burnout in a lot of cases. So how do you fill your bucket? How do you show yourself? Like your daughter says, you're amazing. How do you help yourself feel that?
Well, thank you for what you're doing. Always becoming better has a domino effect. And it means something coming from her because she knows me better than anybody on the planet. So it's one thing to have an impression of somebody. It's another thing to know them intimately and to feel that. So that is something that I'm proud of. But I have studied mindfulness-based stress reduction. I don't know if you're familiar with John Kabat-Zinn, but I've graduated from his 12-week stress reduction program. So practice mindfulness.
I
Start
love that.
each day with journaling and meditation and working out mind, body, soul, and trying to achieve balance, though that remains a goal, an idea that I get that I have a difficult time practicing. But starting the day mindfully, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, at least is a step in the right direction, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. And it is always a work in progress. Always it's a work in progress, but I love that you've pointed out those things, those places where you can go and find that as women a lot of times we're just hard on ourselves. And I love that you're taking the time to practice the mindfulness and the meditation and maybe listen to those voices that are telling you, "Hey, you're enough and you're doing great things."
Thank you. And the working out too, it helps because if you don't feel well, it's difficult to do all the other things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I am so I admire I've got a 70-year-old in my life who does hikes mountains and does marathons and stuff like that.
wow,
Yes, I'm so proud and pleased and awe and inspired. So I watched that.
that is awesome.
Did you face any unique challenges because you're a woman along your journey?
Yes. Me Too was very interesting because I definitely had my Me Too moments. One of them was a job interview in high school for the summer as a waitress. And I am on the other side of the desk, seated, and the owner tells me I'm going to need to wear the uniform and ask me to come around the desk so he can see how the uniform may fit or what size I may need. And he pulls me on his lap. And he was a very mature man, maybe 70. I didn't know an old man could be that strong, amazing. So there definitely have been Me Too moments. Probably what was most shocking, though, was having grown up in corporate America. When I left to become an entrepreneur, I was not expecting to be perceived as less I know my banker said, oh, you should get MBE certification. And I said, well, what is that? And when that was explained, I'm like, oh, no, you don't understand. Like, we're different generations. I've always competed in mixed environments, mixed gender, mixed races, and managed to be at the head of the class. Like, come on, I work in live network TV. How competitive, like, shocking to experience the broad expectation of less than as an entrepreneur at that point. And I came to realize it was not my work ethic, dedication to excellence, hard work. It was the power of the network flag that gave me all that access.
Yeah. Yeah. We find that a lot in finance too, that sometimes it isn't kind of what you're doing, but the brand behind you that helped propel you. And you do end up with some challenges because of your gender sometimes. So I appreciate your honesty in sharing that with us. And that is hard.
One businessman told me there was a fine line between an aggressive woman and a pushy broad.
I probably cross that line all the time. My husband might say that I do.
Good for you.
But I do think that it's important to tell our stories and our experiences. And now that you're on the other side of the desk, how do you help so that women are not faced with those unique challenges or any sort of diverse hire? Or
I start by telling the truth, not setting false expectations. And sometimes that can be difficult. At one event that a university put on, at the time that I was still doing news, there were newscasters from other stations and people from other career tracks. And the students could choose at whose table they wanted to sit to get more in depth and go one-on-one, etc. And this young lady sat down. She waited so patiently for her turn. And she said, I just want to be you. And I said, thank you, because I'm sure you mean that as a compliment, but please don't say that because you don't know me. You just met me. What I could be terrible. I don't think I am, but I could be you. So what is it that you think you want? And so when she said that, I said, okay, so you appreciate what I do and that I'm good at it. Thank you. I said, but do you recognize that every state I move to a different market, going up the career fast track? So that means I'm usually working Thanksgiving and Christmas because I'm the new girl. So like while my family is gathering together, I'm doing the news and calling. And I'm like, do you recognize I've been out on a date on the 4th of July and the fireworks barge blows up and all of a sudden date's over. I'm covering what happened. So she actually tears just started rolling down her face because that was not a price she was willing to pay. And I said, so that's not, there are other things that you may want to do, but that clearly, and so I said, so just be careful what you see. And with social media today,
oh yeah,
people often look at it and they're looking at somebody's best curated life and judging it against their everyday and feeling less than. And it's probably one reason mental health is such an issue now. So I try to start with level setting with truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to one of my team members at one point, and I said, I don't want you to have to work, nights and weekends and all the days and hours that I did. But I will say that I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't work all those nights and hours and weekends. So I think it's really important to understand that there are give and takes, and it's okay to say, I'm not willing to do what you did, but that may mean that you're not in the same place that you're at.
Exactly. Where some people see obstacles, others see opportunities.
Yeah.
where some give up with an obstacle, others find a way around it
Mm-hmm.
with integrity.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love the way you put that. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
Rhonda, what is the thing you are most proud of?
I probably, I'm difficult with superlatives, but I think this is easy. It is my daughter, because I did not scale Camera Ready because I became a mother and made conscious choices to pay it forward. And she is just thriving.
Mm-hmm.
So I am really, really pleased with that, because I didn't feel like it was my role to make her like me or love me, but I felt like I was divinely assigned to enable her to the best of my ability to thrive without me.
But that's hard too, because guess what? Then they grow up and leave and they do it without you. And you're so proud of them on one hand, and you miss them so much on the other hand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always felt like that is an amazing job that we as moms and women get to do, is to raise daughters and sons to go out and be wonderful people in this world. And yet I cry every time they leave the house. So when they go to college and stuff like that, if I were cried every time they left the house, I'd be in big trouble. But I love that we are so proud of them and what they can accomplish and what they can do. And I love that you mentioned that your daughter tells you that you did a good job. Like, she's proud of you.
Yeah, and she is so gracious. She got an accomplishment recently and she called to share it, and sent a note immediately thanking me for my contribution to that. So it's just, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I just think that's amazing. And I really, really identify with that. Thank you for sharing that. Any advice for a young lady who is just maybe starting down this path? And like this, yours is a television turned entrepreneurial, so you can kind of choose which path she's starting down. But any advice for her to help her be so successful like you?
Dare to dream. Don't look at where you are today and what somebody tells you is realistic. Dare to dream. If I could be anything, I would be this. And why? The why is important. And then, okay, what can I do to do that? Sometimes thinking about the end result can be daunting, but if it's okay, business, what kind of business? Might I visit a business like that and talk to the people who work there? Talk to the person who might be in charge. Ask if I can get a job, part-time intern. What should I read? Where should I go to school? What should I study? To ask questions. And that is so much easier today with AI and YouTube. You can learn a lot. Ask questions. Be careful who you associate with, because it normalizes behavior. So if you are inspired by XY leader, you may not be able to meet XY leader. But if you know the people you spend your time around will never help you get to that point, then maybe you should disassociate a little bit, because what becomes normalized can impede opportunity. Like somebody I learned recently in a meeting the other day lost a job offer because of something they liked on social media that was so anathema to what the corporation stands for. So association in many ways is meaningful. And I don't mean that to sound exclusionary, It's just strategic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and who you surround yourself with are the kind of ideals and the kind of drive and the kind of ambition. I've always loved working with people who are smarter than me, more ambitious than I am, just because that kind of does inspire me to be more like them.
I love that. One of my tenets is, if I can't be better tomorrow than I am today, why get up?
Yeah. Oh, I love that idea.
Thank you.
Just in one little way. And then maybe write it in your gratitude journal or your journal, right?
Exactly.
Rhonda, thank you so much for spending some time and sharing your story. I've really, really appreciated it. And I'm sure my listeners will too. If they want to ask questions or set up a coffee chat with you or something like that, how do they do that?
Rhonda at camerareadyinc.com is probably the easiest. And if you just go to camerareadyinc.com, there's a contact page that can forward to me. But it is a pleasure spending time with you. I hope you got what you needed, and I hope you continue adding fearless females to a broader audience.
I love that idea because I think they're just amazing. You fearless females out there doing such great work. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Rhonda.
You amongst them. Thank you.